My privilege now to introduce to you the president of Mercer University. Since he came to Mercer some nearly 6 years ago, President Underwood has been a student-oriented leader. The evidence of that is all around you in that structure that has newly opened just up the street, in the beauty of this campus, in the College Hill corridor, which connects the university to the city of Macon, in the groundbreaking Mercer on Mission program, which connects university to the world. He is also a very strong academic president. He expects the best from students, from faculty, from staff, from all of us, and you will find that he celebrates your achievements in the classroom, on the athletic fields, and in the community. He's a very visible president in the Georgia legislature, in the 2010 and 2011 president of the Atlantic Sun Conference, in the city of Macon, and on our campus, whether it's having coffee in Jittery Joe's, or working out in the early morning in the University Center, or hosting with his wife, Leslie, faculty and students in their home. He loves, I can tell you this personally, he loves this university, loves what it stands for, loves its direction, loves the conversation that is going on here, a conversation that you are now joining. So it's my pleasure to present the 18th president of Mercer University, William Underwood.
This is, of course, Convocation. A convocation is a calling together or a coming together of a community. In this case, of course, an academic community. It's an opportunity to welcome new members to the community, and surely that is a principal focus of our convocation today. It's also an opportunity to introduce you to and remind ourselves of our academic community's tradition and heritage. As you processed to this auditorium on a warm summer afternoon, you passed the statue of our founder, a Baptist preacher named Jesse Mercer. His statue is there in the center of campus as a reminder to us that we were, as a university, founded by people of faith who shared a progressive vision for a place that would educate future generations of principled leaders for our churches and for our communities. Over the past 178 years, that vision has been realized in the lives of now generations of Mercer graduates. When I think of these, I think about graduates like a young man who was raised in rural Georgia, who came to Mercer, and after leaving, graduating from this place, became one of the greatest and most powerful lawyers in the world. He was appointed by President Kennedy to serve on the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit when that court was charged with desegregating the South. He later served as Attorney General of the United States when it was his task to restore integrity to the Department of Justice in the wake of the Watergate scandal. When the body of Osama bin Laden was buried at sea earlier this year, it was deposited from the deck of the aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, named in honor of a great Mercerian, Carl Vinson, who served as the congressional leader who championed the idea of a two-ocean navy. That aircraft carrier was christened in a ceremony here in this auditorium in 1974, presided over by President Richard Nixon in one of his last public appearances before he resigned. I think about Carl Vinson. I also think about the current governor of Georgia, the Honorable Nathan Deal. During his first year in office, this past year, Governor Deal modeled what should occur in Washington when he worked with leaders from across the political spectrum to preserve the Hope Scholarship Program. I think about more recent Mercer graduates, a 1995 graduate named Olu Menje, who after graduating from Mercer returned to his home in Liberia to rebuild the school that he had attended as a child, a school that had been destroyed during that nation's long civil war. Today he serves as the headmaster of the Ricks Institute, which is playing a central role in building a better future for the people of Liberia. Many of you will have an opportunity to work with Olu as part of a Mercer on Mission trip to the Ricks Institute. Somewhat closer to home, I think about a 2005 Mercer graduate named Josh Rogers, who after graduating from Mercer decided to pursue his love for community revitalization right here in Macon. Today, Josh is rebuilding the historic Bells Hill neighborhood, which stands on the edge of our campus, through his work as executive director of the Historic Macon Foundation. Most established universities can cite similar success stories. One of the things that makes this university special is that you don't have to graduate here before you will have opportunities to begin exercising leadership in ways that will improve lives here in this community. Mercer is the kind of place where 4 students in a senior capstone class studied the factors that serve to revitalize communities and then applied what they learned to launch what we call the College Hill Corridor Initiative. Today, 4 years after they completed their class project, the College Hill Corridor has attracted more than $25 million in private investment that is transforming the neighborhoods between Mercer and downtown. What has become a national model for urban redevelopment began with Mercer students in one of our classrooms. One of these students, a 2007 Mercer graduate named Alex Morrison, has recently returned to Macon as the executive director of the Urban Development Authority. Mercer is the kind of place where students in a class studied the devastating impact of massage parlors on the women who work there. They learned that these businesses frequently engage in human trafficking. But these students didn't just study the problem. They decided to do something about it. They organized a national conference on sex trafficking and then worked to change local ordinances and state laws here in Georgia to make it more difficult for these exploitive businesses to exist. Their work is literally saving lives. One of the principal student leaders in this endeavor, a 2010 Mercer graduate named Hannah Van, recently completed her postgraduate Fulbright Fellowship in Indonesia. We like to talk about these Mercer students and graduates. We're proud of them. We want you to aspire to accomplish heroic things with your lives, and we think that these graduates and students are good role models for you to think about as you consider your possibilities. Perhaps never before have there been more possibilities and challenges for talented and principled young leaders. Our gathering today takes place during a stormy and turbulent period. We are polarized as a people. Our elected officials often seem incapable of working together constructively to solve our nation's challenges and opportunities. Our bitterly partisan political environment has led to paralysis, even in this time of national emergency. Nowhere has this failure of our democratic institutions been more evident than in the debt limit debacle witnessed earlier this summer. As the world watched in disbelief, our elected representatives took our nation and indeed the world economy to the brink of catastrophe. Shock waves from this debacle continue to reverberate throughout the world. Many observers argue that we are witnessing the decline of democratic capitalism and the rise of authoritarian capitalism as the world's dominant political economic system. Today's convocation, or coming together of our community, is a good metaphor for what is desperately needed in our nation. Rebuilding our democracy is the theme of our Lyceum over the next 2 years, because doing so is among the greatest challenges of our age. It's a challenge for our colleges and universities. We once viewed preparing students to exercise the responsibilities of self-governance in a democratic society as one of our obligations. We believed it was necessary to ensure that students understood their rights and freedoms because we knew that our citizens could not protect democratic institutions that they did not understand. Somewhere along the way, most of our colleges and universities lost their way. Today, most college students would fail a basic test on civic literacy. A recent study of students at 55 leading universities found that more than a third were unable to identify the United States Constitution as the document that establishes the division of powers in our country. Another study found that 60% of our students think that the president, not Congress, has the power to declare war, and 50% think the president can suspend the Constitution whenever he decides to do so. In a study of college students commissioned by the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, nearly half of the participants did not know that the Federalist Papers were written in support of ratifying our Constitution. A former chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities has urged that defending our democracy demands that we instill in our students a deep understanding of the ideals, ideas, and institutions that have shaped our country. We must know who we are as a people and why our country is worth fighting for. The current president of the University of Oklahoma, David Boren, argues in his letter to America that this is more important for Americans than for any other national group. You see, we are obviously a remarkably diverse group of people. What makes us Americans is not the color of our skin, it's not our religious observance, nor even is it where we were raised. What makes us Americans is our common set of values and our shared commitment to the political institutions that preserve them. Our democracy, indeed our very future as a people, is threatened by our ignorance of the ideas, ideals, and institutions that shape our system of government. Let me suggest to our faculty that as we continue considering reform of our general education curriculum at Mercer, let us challenge ourselves to do what is necessary to ensure that every Mercer student develops a deep understanding of the ideals and institutions that form the basis for our government. Harvard professor Harry Lewis has argued that institutions for higher education have a social contract with America. We owe it to the country to teach our students and show our students how democracy works. Let us as a community commit ourselves to do just that. Perhaps the most foundational of the ideals essential to making democracy work is that of protecting the free exchange of ideas. You see, at its best, democracy is about the competition of ideas. And that competition is most fruitful when it takes place in a free marketplace. That's what the 6 individual freedoms guaranteed by the very First Amendment to the United States Constitution are all about. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to exercise our religion, freedom from government-established religion, freedom to assemble, and freedom to petition our government. That's what these 6 freedoms are all about, is ensuring a free and fruitful marketplace of ideas. Consistent with the metaphor of a free market of ideas, the United States Supreme Court has recognized that our future as a people depends upon leaders trained through wide exposure to that robust exchange of ideas which discovers truth out of a multitude of tongues, rather than through any kind of authoritarian selection. For our free marketplace of ideas to function effectively, we must, first and foremost, be open as individuals to the possibility that we don't already have all the answers. We must have the humility to entertain the possibility that we are wrong. It has been said that the wise man doubts often and changes his mind. The fool is obstinate and doubts not. He knows all things but his own ignorance. While our culture today, while our media today condemn the flip-flopper as weak or indecisive or perhaps opportunistic, an openness to reconsidering one's conclusions may instead evidence a humble spirit and an active and engaged mind, something that surely should be desired in our leaders. For our free marketplace of ideas to work as it should, we must be open to hearing a variety of viewpoints. If all we ever hear are voices with whom we agree, how do we test our own ideas? How do we really know if we're right if we haven't truly considered why we might be wrong? Am I making truly informed judgments if I get all my information from Fox News, or if I get all my information from MSNBC? For our free marketplace of ideas to advance our nation, the contest should be more about the ideas themselves and less about demonizing those who advance the ideas. This may surprise some of you, but virtually all the liberals I know are patriotic people who love this country and want a better and more prosperous future for our children. Virtually all of them. This will surprise some of you as well. Virtually all of the conservatives I know are patriotic people who love this country and want a better and more prosperous future for our children. The two groups simply have different ideas about how we go about accomplishing this. So let me suggest that we'd be better off if we focused on the ideas and engaging the different ideas and dropping the name-calling. These are habits that we should instill in our students while they are here with us. We should model these habits of how to engage in constructive civil dialogue in our own dialogue and debate on campus. And fortunately, that's the model I've witnessed here at Mercer. Remembering a line from a former dean of Yale Law School, above all else, a university should be a place where we learn how to argue and debate with each other without ceasing to love and respect each other. Our democracy can be rebuilt. It can be saved if we actively teach and learn these values by word and in practice in our institutions of higher learning. As we open this 179th academic year of Mercer University, you, our entering students, will be asked to commit to a code of conduct which is aimed at fostering a community of respect. And you will also be asked to commit to a code of honor in which you will pledge to adhere to standards of honesty and integrity in all that you do here at Mercer. Those commitments are important, but let all of us here gathered also pledge, as we leave this place, to commit ourselves to teaching and learning about the ideals and institutions on which our country is founded. Let us commit ourselves, as we leave, to considering fairly the views of others, to having the humility to entertain the possibility that our views are wrong, and to engaging in civil dialogue, discourse, and debate. Let me charge our community to commit ourselves to working together toward the noble goal of rebuilding our democracy.